Hello, my name is Father Edward Looney, and you are listening to the podcast How They Love Mary, a podcast that I hope will either be the beginning or the deepening of your Marian devotion. If you talk to many of the seminarians who are studying for the Catholic priesthood, I think you'll hear from them the powerful intercession of Mary and the example that she has played in their life as they've responded to God's call to a vocation. And right now, I am speaking with Mario from Array of Hope Ministries, and they have a new documentary out called Vocation, which really is introducing people to really the life of the seminary, how people explore their vocation and answer that call in the process. Being ordained and what it means to live as a priest in the world today. So, Array of Hope put out this beautiful documentary on priestly vocations, and I'm grateful to have this conversation today. So, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure, Father. Great to see you.
Yeah, and I'm a little familiar with Array of Hope, but I'm not all that familiar. Like I've heard of it, but I don't necessarily know all that much about your organization. So could you maybe just fill us in about the
Sure.
background about your ministry?
Sure. Well, Array of Hope is really it's a multimedia organization. We evangelize through the culture to the culture through multimedia concerts, films, retreats, music, in a way that really we try to make things exciting and relevant to what people are accustomed to receiving content through, and really, the message is over 2,000 years old, but the deliverable is a little different. And that's what Array of Hope does. So we started out as a live event organization with just doing music concerts and creating a tapestry of film behind us. And then we evolved in creating films for Catholic television. And then we evolved in creating our own music and producing that and releasing it. And then we evolved into also doing podcasts. So anything that has to do with media as a deliverable, that's what we do. And it's distinctly Catholic.
And you guys are based primarily out of New York. Is that right? Somewhere out there on the East Coast?
Somewhere out there on the East Coast. Yes, we're in New Jersey, near New York, but we're a national apostolate. We travel all over the country. Our content is shared actually all over the world, and our live events, our concerts, and our retreats are all over the country. And we actually even are involved in something called a program called Behold, which aligned itself to the Eucharistic revival that is in session right now. That was launched by the USCCB. So we're all over the country.
So you live out in the New York, New Jersey area. Uh,
Do.
I'm in Wisconsin, lifelong Packer
Okay.
fan. I'm wondering,
Ah,
are you a Jets fan or are you a Giants fan or a Bills fan? What's your sports team?
well, uh, Giants. I follow the Giants. Not so much the Jets, although I am sympathetic to their season not
Sure.
being as exciting as we anticipated it to be. But yeah, I'm not a Bills fan. I don't really follow the Bills.
So you mentioned that your organization, Array of Hope, really
Yeah,
started as multimedia concerts, all these different things.
yeah,
So Vocation, a documentary, that's one of your projects. What are some of the other projects before we talk about Vocation that
yeah.
you guys have done?
Well, let me share with you our film division. So we started creating films over many years, and when COVID hit, we were inspired to create a platform that allowed us to continue our live events when we weren't able to perform live in front of people. So we created a virtual platform, a virtual stage, a virtual really space where people can experience events. And that was the beginning of creating the Array of Hope channel and app. So, and through that, we put all our films on our channel and our app, and we started that last February, and we have just a little over 500 films. So we have people that have contributed films like the Knights of Columbus and other content creators have contributed to our channel, and we create a lot of our films on our channel, and we have Catholic series, and we have our music videos and our behind the scenes content. And Vocation came up about a year ago. One of our priests that we work with, Father Richard Carlton, from the Diocese of Patterson, had shared with us that, vocations are down, and it's important that, people understand the importance of the priesthood. And he started sharing with us, with some of our team members here. And he says, you guys should do a film on vocation. And I thought about and discerned about it and says, you're right. I mean, it's so important. It's the bloodline to receiving the sacraments. Without priests, we can't receive the sacraments. There's no church. So, and that was the beginning of it. And in answer to your question, there's a multiple of projects that we produce, and Vocation was one of them that we started well over a year ago.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's a platform. There's an app. Do people
Yeah,
pay for the app? Is that how they
yeah,
access it? Is it kind of like Hallow in a sense? You pay a fee and a yearly fee, and then you have access to all the material.
yeah. I mean, the closest I could describe it is like it's like a Catholic Netflix. Something comparable might be
And
Saint Augusta's.
the formed platform.
Yeah, exactly. I went blank
Okay.
there. The foreign platform, but it is free. A lot of our content is free. The
Okay.
app is free. You could download it on, Roku, Apple TV, or on your phone. You do have to register it and subscribe online on a desktop, and it's very easy. All you have to do is search Array of Hope on Google, and you'd see the Array of Hope channel. Just click on it; it'll bring you into the platform, and you just sign up. And it's very simple. We do have a premium area, but most of the stuff is free, and Vocation is absolutely free, the film.
Well, that's wonderful. And so, as you filmed and had your film crew doing Vocation, what
Yeah.
were some of the what were some of the things you wanted to for sure feature in the 25-30 minute documentary that you guys did?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this film was brilliantly edited and produced by Ryan Dever, one of our producers here in house. And we didn't know what it was going to be like. So we profiled several men that were discerning, several men that were in seminary, and several men that were existing priests. And we just started talking to them. And what unfolded was really interesting in that the sense that we found some of the difficulties that men that hero calling today have. One of which might be within their own families, discouragement, given the reality of what's going on in the Catholic Church. A lot of people will say to people that are discerning or hearing a calling, say, "Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to become a priest?" And so we talked about that, and we shared about that, and why men have this desire to grow closer to Christ and then to serve his church. And it was beautiful because I have to say, the young men that are coming up through discernment and going into seminary and even being ordained priests today are really strong, powerful, faith-filled men. Otherwise, why would they do it, right? Why would they want to amidst all the adversity that they receive and discouragement, and we share that discouragement. Sometimes it comes within close friends and family, and people even sometimes within the church, which is really disheartening. And we share that. I mean, we feel that the film is sort of like shoot from the hip in a way that it really reveals the sincerity of men that are really thinking about it. And one of the things that we shared, and Father, you can relate to this, is that I'm sure you were in seminary with men that never became priests, right? And we share that, what, just because you hear a calling at this moment in your life doesn't necessarily mean that that calling is going to be fulfilled, at what and after seminary, right? There is an opportunity that God calls men to really, it's part of their journey, part of their plan. And we reveal that some of the men that heard the calling discerned out and became very faithful leaders in business and fathers and husbands, and use that formation really to be a beacon of light and an instrument within the vocation that they chose, which is a father or a husband or whatever walks of life that they choose. So we shared those things that were revealed in the film because we found them to be powerful and disarming to people that feel that just because you're going into seminary doesn't necessarily mean that you become a priest. We want you to become a priest, of course, but there's other reasons that God has in mind, right? It's sort of like you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? God might have a different plan for you, and this is part of your journey.
Yeah, when I was in the seminary, there was always kind of the phrase that that so and so discerned out of the seminary, and that could happen on their own part. That, my friend, let's say his name's John, and so
Right.
John discerns out of the seminary, just realize, I think God's calling me to marriage.
Right.
That's the vocational path I should follow. I realize that maybe my gifts wouldn't be fully utilized as a priest or whatever. So they kind of, through their own prayerful discernment, conversation with their spiritual director, they discern out. There's
Right.
another aspect of discernment too, and that's the church discerns. So not only do you as an individual discern, but then the seminary discerns in the name of the church, the bishop and the vocation director discern in the name of the church. So it's possible that, one of those entities or people, they might make the decision and say, you know what, we don't think that Holy Mother Church is calling you to ordain ministry. And so
Hmm.
the church discerns you out of the seminary. And I know guys like that weren't advanced beyond, the next year, that the seminary said, I think you should hold your horses, maybe, and not pursue this right now. So you do see that. So hopefully when you get to ordination day, well, then you can say, well, I've discerned this and the church has discerned this, and it seems that it's in unison, then that this is the holy will of God. And that as one carries out their life as a priest and ministry, we see how God is using that and how God is fulfilling that calling that he gave and affirmed through ordination of the priesthood.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's great.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little more about the discouragement, just because that was something that, as I watched, I wrote that down specifically to talk about. And you mentioned it comes from family, so I'm willing to bet. For example, I'm an only child. My mother, I don't think, was too gung ho about me being a priest, and so I think sometimes for a person in my situation, it's kind of the mourning over the fact, oh, you won't have grandchildren. That
Yeah.
in my case, the family name will, at least our branch of it, will fade away, as a priest. So that could
Yeah.
be it. Well, what are some of the other reasons why someone might discourage a priestly vocation?
Well, I think some of the things that men hear is that, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to give up your life to an entity, a church, a God that maybe is not relevant in the culture, or in their minds they feel is not relevant, right? Or why would you want to? Sometimes a lot of these men here, why would you want to waste your life at that? And don't you want to become a husband or a father? And men will often say, yes, yes, I would like that too. But there's a higher calling that I receive. And what was really beautiful is the response of one of the mothers of someone in seminary, and she was proposed this question. She says, don't you feel bad that you're not going to be a grandmother and not have any grandkids? And she says, well, you know what? I don't think of it that way, because I'm going to think of my son as going to be a father to hundreds of men and women and children. So I'm going to have hundreds of grandchildren, and she kind of shifted the paradigm, right? She kind of shifted the perception, and she had the right, viewpoint. She had the right sentiment that, what, your son is doing something really, really beautiful and powerful, that he is going to be a father, but it's going to be in a different way that maybe you're not seeing, or maybe you're not understanding. So, in answer to your question, there's a lot of discouragement. I think one of them that we shared with you is that discouragement that, the church, whether we like it or not, is in crisis. And there's a lot of scandal within the church that have discouraged men and families to say, don't go into that mess. And I think what I shared with you early on in this interview is that, the men that are, going into becoming priests and wanting to become priests and hear the call and go into seminary, are really men that have really discerned, I think, a little bit even more deeply than men have in the past, because there've been a lot of setbacks. There's been a lot of obstacles in the way that they really needed to make sure that this is what they're hearing the Lord say to them. And in that way, I think it's weeded out some really, potential bad priests, that, you're really getting strong men that say, you know what? I don't care, because it is the true church. It is the church that Christ founded. And I want to serve that church, so
Yeah, and one of the things with the program for the priestly formation, one of the things that's changed is that they've added what's called like a propedeutic year, big fancy word, and so it kind of elongates the seminary formation process. But it's basically an intentional year where the man who wants to go to the seminary kind of lives in a community, isn't necessarily in the seminary per se, they're being formed, and it's kind of like this spiritual formation year
Hmm.
to really bring them to a point to say, yes, I want to go on to study to be a priest. And
Wow, that's great.
and what I've noticed, or what I've heard from vocation directors, is that this propedeutic year is actually helping, to wean some of the guys out that maybe would go to seminary for 1 or 2 years, and then they'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Well, they're coming to that conclusion a little quicker then, because of the propedeutic year. And
Mm.
every diocese sees this, where unfortunately a guy gets ordained, and maybe 4 or 5 years, 6 years later, he says, I don't know if I'm called to this. So he steps out of ministry, takes a leave of absence. And, I've heard bishops say, they said, if we would have had this propedeutic year, maybe that man never would have reached holy orders, and he would have come to realize this even before he was ordained, which then would create less scandal in the church, all of these things. So
Mm.
I think there are some good measures that the church is putting into practice to help address kind of the scandal that could be caused by a vocation, in terms of leaving it, or causing scandal by actions that are done.
Mm. That's good. I first I'm hearing of that, so that's great that I mean, obviously, in order for the church to survive and sustain itself, we have to find better ways to, weed out the bad and encourage the good, right? And this is good. I'm glad to hear that.
So we talked a little bit about discouragement a few moments ago, and obviously, I think one of the things that we need to do then is kind of to create a better culture of vocation, if you will. Maybe put a more positive spin around vocation. I think your documentary Vocation, available from Array of Hope, that's one of the ways that we do create this culture. But how do we start talking positively about the call and creating kind of this environment where someone's son or daughter, or someone's son or grandson would consider the priesthood, a daughter would consider the religious life, etc. So how do we bring people to positively begin thinking and discerning that?
Wow, that's a big question, Father. I I think there's a multiple of factors to that. I think it has to start with the family, and there has to be a devotion to just raising families Catholic and authentically Catholic, and showing the beauty of what it means to be Catholic. And then finding parishes that embrace just um, the liturgy and the mass to be, traditional. I like a traditional mass. I like things to be orthodox. I love to sharing the beauty. I think the young people are attracted to beauty and tradition, believe it or not. And when they see that, um, it's just like any other profession. There's a yearning, there's a desire. That's beautiful. I'm touched by this. Maybe, that's how I think we need to touch young men early on through the family, and also through the church, to show the beauty of the Eucharist, the power of the sacraments, and offer maybe a deeper, uh, just a deeper resource for formation. Maybe double up on our CCD programs and incorporate some sort of messaging for for vocation even early on, that will instill sort of like a seed of grace in young men's in mind and heart early on. And I think, you know, that's this question's a little bit above my pay grade. I think it's pretty, it's really got to be a massive undertaking to really encourage, the culture to make people want to become a priest, uh, and I think that it's important. I think even sharing the importance of the priesthood and what a priest does, administering the sacraments is beautiful. I mean, what, what greater act? I can't. I mean, Father, you would know better than I. What greater act is there than to consecrate the Eucharist? Holy mackerel! But every time you do that, it's a miracle. I guess just trying to share the beauty and what is actually happening. In the everyday routine of a priest, a man that has devoted his life to Christ, and being really, you know, an apostle, right? I mean, eventually you're really walking in that life. You're the apostolic succession. I often share with people is that we're the only religion that can be traced directly back to Christ himself, which is really powerful. I don't think we do tons of retreats and we always share that, say, hey, the priest here that's walking around here, he has a direct lineage right back to Christ. There aren't any religions that can express that except the Orthodox religion, but that's a different, conversation, as you might know. But I think I just think they're sharing the faith in a way that's loving and exciting and encouraging is where we need to start to encourage vocation.
You're a layman working in the church. You
Yeah.
have a ministry that you're a part of, a Ray of Hope. So God has called you, and kind of this has become a part of your vocation within your vocation in a sense. So I'm wondering though, kind of as you have this documentary on discerning a call to the priesthood, hopefully to inspire other vocations to come forward. Have you ever kind of seen a man or accompanied a man? Like, is there someone close in your life, like maybe from your parish or your family, that entered the seminary to begin the process of formation for priesthood? Is that something that you've personally witnessed?
I've walked with some men that I didn't know them before they discerned to be a priest, but as they entered seminary and went to college and studied, theology, I've walked with some men and experienced their lives and saw that, and some discerned out, and some actually became priests. Um, so it is beautiful to witness. I mean, it's like anything else. You have to, it takes time, right? I don't even know how long is it 7 years or something like that before you can become a priest or
Yeah,
something
it's
like
like 7 to 9 now, I think. Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, in that regard, and answer your question, it is a beautiful thing to witness, because you see the discipline that's required. I mean, you have to be disciplined in your prayer life. You have to be disciplined, you know, um, and strengthen certain virtues that are tempting you away from the priesthood. Temptations that will lure you away to what God is calling you. So there's a spiritual strengthening that I've witnessed in men and seen in men. There's a spiritual growth that I've seen. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Have you witnessed an ordination ceremony or been a part of a first mass?
Sure, sure, many times. I mean, we filmed a couple for this documentary, and I've also, I had some, again, some men that I've walked with and known as brothers or deacons that became priests and gone to an ordination mass, and they're beautiful, they're powerful, and like I was sharing you before, laying the hands on, from the bishop, it's really something.
Yeah, one of the moving things in that regard is the maniturgium. Have you seen this exchange where so the priest's hands are anointed at ordination, then they're wrapped in this cloth like a corporal or purificator, and then at the first mass, the priest will give that cloth to his mother, and his mother, when she dies, will have that maniturgium in her hands in the casket along with her rosary, probably. So my mother died back in 2017. I was already ordained. So yes, my mother had the maniturgium. So that's a beautiful little custom there is. And then also too, the father will typically receive the stole, the first stole of which the priest's son heard a confession. And we talked a little bit earlier again about discouragement and vocation, but I think seeing one of those things unfold, kind of the handing on of the maniturgium and the purple stole, and kind of the idea there, kind of the tradition being that once the mother meets the Lord at the gates or gives the account of her life, she'll say, "I gave you a son," or the father will say, "I gave you a son in ministry to the church," and so so it's the gift that the parents make. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a beautiful little note of encouragement, I guess, to families. Maybe they're unaware of that custom, but I think that's always just something very beautiful to see at one of those first masses.
You're right. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. I remember seeing that and I didn't understand it at the time. And then actually one of my friends that was being ordained explained it to me. And I thought that was really beautiful. And to your point, that would, maybe to invite someone that's hearing the calling to an ordination to see that and witness that would be pretty powerful. If someone is even discerning the priesthood, inviting to them to one of those masses, could be pretty transformative.
Yeah, this is a podcast called How They Love Mary. And Mary was a role in my vocation just through some of her apparitions, going on pilgrimage, really kind of convicted my heart to serve as a priest. And so, have you witnessed, or what role do you think Mary plays in the discernment of a vocation? As maybe you saw it, maybe as you guys did vocation and interviewed these guys and they shared their story, maybe the Blessed Mother stood out in that story. So, any words about Mary and vocation?
Um, Certainly, she's mentioned. I think there's a strong Marian devotion in the young upcoming men that are discerning and in seminary. Um, we didn't highlight it too much. Maybe we should have, Father. But I know that she's a powerful force in any vocation. Even for me, when you were talking about, this vocation that I've chosen here, and I chose this later in life, and I only established my own personal relationship with our Blessed Mother later on, and I later consecrated myself and my family to Our Lady, and then consecrated a Ray of Hope to Our Lady a year after that, and it was a game changer for me, and I had to learn and understand our Blessed Mother, and really uh, try to, uh, connect the dots because I didn't understand, early on. I wasn't really exposed to a Marian devotion early on in life. And it was only later that it all made sense, and so, but it's powerful and I'm glad to hear that your whole ministry
Wow.
rests on that.
Yeah, it's interesting too because probably 2 or 3 decades ago, a man who would say, "I want to be a priest," and they prayed the rosary, they would probably be turned away from seminary. And now you have seminaries praying the rosary together as a community. So we've seen
Yeah.
a complete shift. Fulton Sheen famously wrote in, his two books on the priests, "Those Mysterious Priests" and "The Priest Is Not His Own." He wrote about the necessity of Marian devotion in the life of a priest, and
Mm,
I think that's so true. That Mary's prayers, her intercession helps us with our faith, our obedience, with our purity and chastity, all of these different things that really Mary's example. And just the fact that she said yes at the Annunciation, "Let it be done to me according to your word." Mary's
yeah.
yes helps me to say yes to whatever God is asking and whatever God's will is for me in the present moment. So I think she is a great encourager of vocations, much like your documentary Vocation, available from Array of Hope, will be for those who watch it. So would you recommend people watching this, maybe showing it to high school kids, or kind of who's your intended targeted audience? How can
Yeah.
get the word out about it?
Once I started to seeing the rough edits that our team was putting together, I was encouraged that it was a film really that anyone and everyone should see, because it will spark an interest in someone that is hearing the calling, but it also will inform and give people a sense of what these men are like, and what the process is, and what the journey is like. And I think that's important, even if you're not even Catholic, to check that out. So, in answer to your question, definitely high schools, definitely even grammar schools, and definitely watch it as a family. I've had friends of mine that have said they watched it as a family and they learned a lot of things, and they have a different perspective as a result of watching the film of what the priesthood is and what it can be in someone's life. So, I think it could be transformative. I think it could be informative, and I think it could be inspirational all in one viewing. And it's really short, Father. It's only 32 minutes, so you can kind of you can get all that in one breath.
Yeah, beautiful. Have you guys submitted it for any awards or anything like that? Like, I made a documentary. We did film festivals with the documentary.
Yeah.
Is that anything you guys intended to do?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. Yeah, we're in the process of submission and doing all that. We're also eventually probably going to have it on an additional streaming platform in addition to our own channel, so it can get even a greater exposure. And we're probably going to be doing that at the beginning of next year. So the first quarter, January, February, March, somewhere around then, that's when we'll be making that introduction.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation, Mario, about vocation and Array of Hope. What's the website for Array of Hope again? Just if people are curious and want to check out more.
Yeah, it's ARRAY of hope.org. And as a matter of fact, if you just go on our website as well and click the watch button, you'll land right on our channel. And then you'll be able to see everything that is offered on our channel. And you'll be able to navigate right to vocation. Just put in vocation and you'll find it right away.
Is there one other video on your platform that you'd recommend us? Like vocation, let's say that's number one recommendation right now. What's the second one you'd send us to watch?
We have the Mother Teresa film, Greater Love, I think it's called, that the Knights of Columbus produced, that won all kinds of awards and was on, we carry that. We carry a lot of other really cool films. We have a film called Happiest Mothers and Daughters, a series that discusses a relationship between a mother and daughter as a woman matures. We have something called Beheading Hydra, which is a series with Father Dwight Longenecker, really powerful priest. We have another series, Spirit Strength, which is about a young man that uses the discipline of exercise into developing your spiritual strength. We have a lot of really good stuff on there, Father, I have to say. So can I recommend one in particular? I just did recommended a couple, but we have a lot of really good stuff on there. In addition to short little bits of hope films, like things that are like 5 minutes that you can watch on the saints. We have a whole series on the saints. We have a whole series on everyday heroes, people, ordinary people that are doing extraordinarily powerful things within the church and within their communities and their culture that are inspiring. So there's a lot of really good family content on there that I think anybody would enjoy.
Well, this is all wonderful that you've shared this. I think a lot of people are familiar with Formed or Hallow, but I think we need to familiarize ourselves with Array of Hope. And I'm glad we had this conversation and could talk about vocation today. So thanks so much,
Great.
Mario, for your time.
God bless you, Father, and all your work. Thank you.